The wait was long, but CHANGLI is finally here. In this video, we'll cover CHANGLI's whole kit, best weapons, echoes, themes, and how to play. CHANGLI is a 5-star fusion sword user. She's a DPS, but her kit is designed with a dual DPS situation in mind, as we'll see. Her kit is not the simplest, but I'll make it as straightforward as possible without the longest official descriptions. The core of her damage lies in her forte and resonance skills, with most of it considered resonance skill damage, similar to Jinxie. However, her resonance liberation plays an important part in her overall damage. CHANGLI's basic attack is a sequence of 4 beautiful fusion attacks. After the 4th attack, CHANGLI enters her True Sight mode for 12 seconds. She also entered this mode after using 4 attacks while mid-air, after a resonance skill, and after a neutral skill, also for 12 seconds. You can check if you're in the True Sight mode by looking at CHANGLI's hair. If it's on fire, you're in the True Sight mode. True Sight is crucial because it's how she gets stacks for her forte bar, which can hold up to 4 points by the way. Inside the True Sight mode, using a basic attack triggers a dash attack called True Sight Conquest. Using a mid-air attack transforms CHANGLI into a phoenix for True Sight Charge. Both of these attacks add 1 point to CHANGLI's forte circuit bar, and True Sight mode ends immediately after using either True Sight Conquest or True Sight Charge. Although both are technically basic attacks, they are tied to her resonance skill damage. True Sight Conquest, the ground dash attack, is stronger and recovers more concerto energy than the mid-air Phoenix attack, so prioritize the ground attack. CHANGLI's resonance skill has 2 charges with individual cooldowns, similar to Shisha's. You get 1 charge every 12 seconds. This skill deals damage with multiple hits and has a cool animation. Remember, you enter True Sight after each cast. So, the order should be Resonance Skill, True Sight Conquest or Charge, Resonance Skill again, and True Sight Conquest or Charge. Never use 2 casts of the Resonance Skill back to back to maximize the points for her forte bar. CHANGLI's Resonance Liberation is a powerful fusion damage ability with one of the most beautiful animations in the game. Her liberation immediately recovers all the 4 points of her forte bar. Now let's talk about the forte bar. We know how to get points, but what does it do? Once you have 4 points, you can consume them to cast a powerful heavy attack considered as resonance skill damage. CHANGLI's entire kit revolves around this attack. This attack is 100% swap cancelable, similar to Yinglin's, allowing for a very fun and fast-paced gameplay. Additionally, while casting this special heavy attack, CHANGLI takes 40% less damage. It also recovers 10 concerto energy. Now coming back to her Resonance Liberation, casting it not only fills the whole forte bar, but also activates a state called Fiery Feather. If you cast the special forte heavy attack within 10 seconds of activating this mode, CHANGLI gains a 25% attack buff. A fun thing to note is how CHANGLI's appearance changes with how many stacks you have on the bar. With 1 stack, you get a flame on her forehead. With 2 stacks, her clothes start burning. With 3 stacks, her coat disappears. And with 4 stacks, she gets a blindfold. CHANGLI's intro skill is a normal fusion attack that also allows you to enter True Sight, which you will want to consume immediately to cast True Sight Conquest or True Sight Charge. CHANGLI's outro skill provides a strong buff to other damage dealers. The incoming Resonator receives a 20% fusion damage buff and a 25% Resonance Liberation damage buff for 10 seconds. This is similar to Yinglin's outro buff, but for fusion, indicating CHANGLI was designed for a dual fusion DPS team. This doesn't mean she can only be played this way, but it's what she excels at. This buff is incredible and we'll discuss it further in the team part of this video. CHANGLI's first inherent skill will give her 5% fusion damage bonus for each point on her forte bar while casting True Sight Conquest or True Sight Charge. That means you can get up to 20% fusion damage bonus if your bar is full. The second inherent skill is incredible and it sounds like a whole sequence to be honest. When she casts her special forte heavy attack or the liberation, she will get 20% fusion damage bonus and ignore 15% of the target's defense. That's a huge buff. We all know how Death Threat is one of the most broken things characters can have. For skill priority, start with the Forte circuit, followed by Resonance skill, Resonance Liberation, Intro skill, and Basic attack. The inherent skills and stat bonuses should be activated as soon as they are available, prioritizing the crit rate stat bonuses over the attack ones. If you're liking this video so far, please consider liking it and subscribing as it helps me create more content on Wuthering Waves. I appreciate it. CHANGLI doesn't need any sequence to be a good character, but let's take a look on how this can change her. For sequence 1, the Resonance skill and special heavy attack will increase CHANGLI's damage dealt by 10% and also increase resistance to interruption. This is a nice buff, but definitely not necessary. For sequence 2, CHANGLI will get an extra 25% crit rate whenever she has points in her Forte bar, which is basically 100% of the time. This is a great sequence that makes your echo farming way easier. For sequence 3, the Resonance Liberation will have its damage increased by 80%. For sequence 4, we have the standard attack percent buff for the team. Here it will be activated after her intro skill and it will last for 30 seconds. For sequence 5, the special Forte heavy attack will have its multiplier increased by 50% and damage dealt by 50% as well. This is a very good buff. For sequence 6, we have probably the most broken sequence in the game so far. CHANGLI's Resonance skill, Forte heavy attack, and Resonance Liberation will ignore an additional 40% of the target's defense. This is an absurd amount of death shred. Combined with her second inherent skill, you will be able to ignore a total of 55% of the target's defense. If you have the sequence, you set for the rest of your life in this game. The highlight here are definitely the second and the last sequences. In my opinion, the signature weapon is more important than trying for S2. You'll already have a very strong CHANGLI if you get her at S0 with signature weapon. But if you go to S2, you'll have a lot of breathing space on your echo building. And well, if you have her at S6, you'll just melt everything in front of you. CHANGLI doesn't have a vast variety of weapon options. The first and most obvious choice is her signature weapon Blazing Brilliance. This sword provides a whopping 48.6 crit damage at level 90, along with 12% attack and a buff that can stack up to 56% resonance skill damage. It's an incredibly strong sword. If you're heavily invested in CHANGLI, you should try to get it. If you don't have it, the standard banner weapon Emerald of Genesis is also a good option. Next, we have the 4-star options, which include Command of Conviction, giving you a lot of attack percent, and the gacha weapon Lunar Cutter. Try to use one of these 4 weapons as they are the best options. If you don't have them yet, you can fill the spot with either Blooming Gloss, the craftable sword number 18, or the 3-star weapon Sword of Night. However, this will fall behind in damage, so consider them as temporary options. CHANGLI can be built in 2 ways. You can maximize her damage with the 5-piece Molten Rift set, or build her to provide substantial buffs to your other DPS character with the 5-piece Moonlit Cloud set. Both of these are great sets. Remember that the overall damage output is a team effort and it's hardly centered at one character, especially in CHANGLI's case. If you already have Moonlit Cloud pieces for her, I wouldn't bother farming Molten Rift from scratch. For both sets, the main stats and substats are the same. CHANGLI uses a 4-3-3-1-1 echo setup. For the 4-cost echo, you should choose either crit rate or crit damage depending on your weapon. Always select the opposite stat of your weapon. For the 3-cost echoes, opt for double fusion damage or fusion damage and attack percent. Remember that she gets a lot of fusion attack from her inherent skills. The difference in damage between these 2 options is minimal, so choose the one with better subsets. For the 1-cost echoes, go for attack percent. For the main echo, use Inferno Rider if running the Molten Rift set and Impermanence Heron if running Moonlit Clouds. The substat priority is Energy Regen until the breakpoint, which is between 20 and 30%, 20% is sufficient, 25% is more comfortable, and 30% ensures you always have her liberation available. Remember that her liberation is crucial because it gives her full stacks of her bar. Do not neglect energy regen here. This is important for every character in the game, but especially for CHANGLI. After energy regen, prioritize crit rate and crit damage, then attack percent, followed by resonance skill damage and flat attack. The ideal endgame stats at level 90 would be energy regen from 20 to 30%, crit rate from 50 to 70%, crit damage from 180 to 240%, and attack from 2000 to 2400. CHANGLI, like Yingling, will maintain a premium spot for a long time due to her ultra skill buff. As we covered, she excels when paired with another fusion DPS. Currently, the best options are Xixia and Encore. Xixia benefits greatly from CHANGLI's ultra buff, as her liberation damage is already high and CHANGLI's buff enhances it significantly. Both characters can cancel their animations, making this duo incredibly effective. A lot of people sleep on Xixia, but she is already one of the strongest single target characters in the game. With CHANGLI covering her only weakness, which is AoE damage, Xixia gains her best teammate ever. For the sustain spot, you can choose Verena as the obvious option to buff both characters' damages, Baizi as a budget option, or Taochi, who is an excellent teammate for CHANGLI as she is for Jinxie. Taochi buffs resonance skill damage with her outro skill, which is crucial for CHANGLI's damage output. Using Taochi as a sustain can be a bit uncomfortable, but the buff she provides is worth the slight inconvenience. Encore is also a great pair for CHANGLI. While she won't fully utilize the resonance liberation buff from CHANGLI's outro, she still benefits from the fusion damage buff. Encore is a very strong character and can also cancel animations, making this an amazing team as well. Adding Verena to this team creates a strong synergy, and I like to call it CHANGLI Childcare Services. Besides these fusion damage focused teams, CHANGLI can be played in multiple duo DPS teams. They don't need to be fusion units. For optimal results, pairing her with another fusion character is ideal, but other characters can also benefit from the liberation part of her buff, like Kalkara and Yingling. Rover in either Havoc or Spectre versions can also be used as a sub DPS. If you want CHANGLI to act as a hyper carry, you can pair her with Taochi and Verena to maximize her damage. However, while it's satisfying to see high numbers, the overall damage might be better with another sub DPS. You can also use Mortefi with her since she buffs his fusion damage, but I only recommend using Mortefi apart from Jian if you don't have Jian. If you do, it doesn't make much sense to pair him with CHANGLI. You might think his heavy attack buff will help CHANGLI, but remember that her heavy attack is considered resonance skill damage. If you're watching this in the future, any fusion character released after 1.1 will also be good to pair with CHANGLI. CHANGLI is not the easiest character to play out there. She can be played in an obvious way, but due to her mechanics and having a lot of swap cancelable skills, she can also be played in a highly optimized swap cancel style. CHANGLI's bread and butter is her special forte heavy attack, so you will always play around that. I'm gonna use Xixia as an example in this rotation. In a Tower of Adversity scenario, you could start by using her Resonance Liberation, guaranteeing an immediate special heavy attack and also the 25% attack buff for the rest of the rotation. So that would be Resonance Liberation, special heavy attack and swap cancel to Xixia, use her tap skill and swap cancel to CHANGLI, stack the forte bar by making use of True Sight, so that's skill, basic attack, skill, basic attack, use the Inferno Rider and swap cancel at the beginning of the third hit, use Xixia's Liberation, followed by the skill, and then tap skill, use the Echo and swap cancel to CHANGLI again, use basic attack right after intro skill, followed by skill and special forte heavy attack, swap cancel to Verena to renew your buffs, and repeat. You can make this rotation way more complicated and fast by cancelling even her Resonance skill. Her Resonance skill, both of her True Sight attacks and her heavy attacks are all cancelable, so you can get really creative with it. The main point while using CHANGLI is to swap cancel as much as possible. You can adapt this entire rotation to your DPS if you're not using Xixia. It works really similar with Encore. If you have your Resonance Liberation, it's always better to start with it to make good use of the 25% attack buff it gives. Make sure that either CHANGLI or the other DPS is using the Moonlit Cloud set for the best damage output possible. And if you're playing in a quick swap team like I showed, make sure to keep an eye on your conservator energy to ensure that you're always using CHANGLI's outro on your next DPS and not on your sustain. If you're using CHANGLI as a hyper carry, the rotation will be really different. In that case, you will swap cancel less and make more use of her true side activation after the 4th basic attack. You will stay more with her on the field, which means faster charge of her bar. You will still want to keep cancelling the special 40 heavy attack at least, just cause it makes everything that much faster. But then you can come back to her and do not leave until you have the whole bar and repeat. That will be it for this CHANGLI guide. I hope it helped you in building and learning how to play our beloved counselor to the Jinzo Magistrate. If you're not on my Discord server yet, consider joining as I host Wuthering Waves giveaways quite regularly. All the links are on the description of this video. Thank you and I'll see you in the next one.